it goes without saying, I'm absolutely delighted with the point here. I think we all regard this New England team as the not just the best team, but certainly the most informed team at this point in the season. Multiple ways of scoring goals and winning games. And on their own turf and on this field, they're an extremely tough proposition. So, look, the plan was to try and make life difficult. I think we did that. There were some bodies that I'm trying to rotate back into the group. There are bodies that have not had a lot of football at all that have come out of the group, i.e. Ake, Yonder. There are players like Alistair who have performed incredibly well for their country and, taken an awful lot of minutes in the Gold Cup. So some rotation was necessary. And given all of those things, I couldn't be more proud of the way that the guys have gone about their business. And ultimately, I felt showed more, maybe aggression and enthusiasm and even, had a hint of we can win this towards the final 10 minutes of the game, which was phenomenal. Great to see one or two of the guys come into the group again. Annabelle's been out with an injury. Obviously, Daniel's been, out of the group. So all in all, a fabulous night, a wonderful point, and the end of what has been a difficult 4 or 5 days for us on the road.
Thank you, Coach. We will now open the floor for questions. We'll kick it off with Ray Hills with the Tennessean.
Yeah, Gary, you mentioned with Ake, obviously someone who is still trying to get a little more football into his legs and a little more minutes. How was his morale when you talked with him? I assume you spoke with him at halftime. Just looking at his first half performance, he seemed, and fair enough, to have a lot of high expectations for himself. When he did get off the ball, he kind of had his hands on his head. I'm curious to know what his reaction was when you spoke with him at halftime and how he felt about his performance.
Well, listen, first of all, I don't have long at half time to sit down and have a debrief with people. Ake understood the reason why he came off, and the reason was that that's the first 45 minutes he's played in a long, long time. I wasn't unhappy with how he performed and what he offered the team along with Yonder up top. It was always going to be a really, really difficult first 45 minutes or an hour. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. I think as you look at the way Ake will blend and mould into this group, the likes of Hanny and Annabelle and Mandel and Dax and CJ, we can go on and on and on. There's a lot of guys missing out of our group tonight that maybe would have helped in the process of his acclimation and his first start. But make no mistake here, this plastic field is not easy to play on, number one. Number two, New England play the field incredibly well. And number three, they're the best team in the league. So it was never, ever going to be easy for any of those players out there. So I'm delighted with the 45 minutes he's got. He's come off healthy and he'll be better for it.
Thank you, Coach. Tim Sullivan with the next question.
You mentioned Hani, CJ, Randall. What did you see out of those guys coming on maybe against tired legs and unfortunately not getting necessarily a ton of finished end product, but providing maybe some moments of danger?
Yeah, as you might expect, there was a sparkle in their play. They come into a game where, the other players have obviously put a good shift in. So no more than I expected. But, the management of 3 games in a short space of time is always difficult. And we've now got a really competitive group. It's an easy example to look at with Robert Castellanos on Sunday. Robert stepped forward now and he's meeting the challenge, as is, the likes of Jack and Taylor and Eric, who have been out the side for long periods. The last 6 weeks, those guys have been stalwarts in this team. They're unbeaten since they've come in the group. So there's some rotation to be had. The guys that came on did a fabulous job. It's not easy coming off the bench, especially in the type of conditions that we'd had. And, my hope is that some of those guys that have not got as many minutes are maybe going to be in a better spot for the weekend. But look, that's a long way off right now. Plenty to consider and to think about, and we'll take stock of where the group's at when we get back.
Ben Wright.
Yeah, Gary, it was a bit of a different role for Alex tonight, kind of in a more central role. And we've seen him there a couple of times, but I don't think from the start. Can you just talk about what you asked from him going into the night and how you rated his performance?
Well, Alex is an incredibly genuine individual, as we all know. He's more than capable of joining in and being part of any creation or attacks that might be, unfolding. I'd asked him to be a little bit more thoughtful and selective about joining in and getting too high up the field and exposing the central two players to what is, when I say central two players, I'm talking about Matt Lagrassa and Brian Anunga from the start. Wanted him to give them a lot more support. There's a lot of ground to cover in there. And having watched Montreal come in not so long ago, and maybe suffer a little bit in certain areas, there were some things to learn from that, some lessons to be had. And what it did was make us more difficult to break down and to obviously penetrate. But unfortunately, in the first half, when we were in possession, maybe a bit of pressure from them, repressing, a little lack of appreciation, awareness or quality from one or two players. And of course, if you're working that hard off the ball and trying to prevent any creation, which they did to a wonderful degree, then there's, a lack of energy in some cases to try and make the most of the ball. So the first half, the only disappointment was we didn't actually achieve more with the ball and manage the ball a little bit better. But overall, Alex's role was one of a more, stable and workman-like role rather than an attacking role.
Dre Hills with a follow-up.
Gary, with the penalty, obviously that was reversed. Was it your immediate thought to believe that he was going to go to VAR to look at that? Obviously, you were not, pleased with it or opposed with it, but I'm curious to know, was that something that you thought was going to happen off the rip?
I can only tell you what my feelings were and what I saw as the game evolved. I thought it was handball. I thought Buska handballed it and it popped down and kept the game alive for him, which ultimately ended up in what I felt was, simulation. That's what I saw. Now, I didn't have the ability to look at a replay. I didn't have, slow motion to look at. The referee was closer. I'm glad that he took the advice of, I'm guessing, VAR and went and had a look. And until I see it again, I'm presuming that they've all come to the right conclusion, because that was what I felt from the outset, that it wasn't a penalty.
Thank you, Coach. We will conclude today's media availability with you with a question from Dean Sullivan to preview the game against Miami.
Gary, this is going to be the third game in a row of playing a team on the road that you've already seen at home. Have you learned anything from these past two games that you can take into Miami from that specific kind of circumstance? And what are you expecting when you guys go to Miami this weekend?
I think you have to expect every single away game you have, you're going to run into a tough environment. I'm sure that everyone down in Miami would like to be in a slightly better position than they are. But when you look around their group, you can't help but focus in on the fact that they still have some very, very good players. And I suspect that, time will be the necessity for Phil to get the job done the way he wants to. And we'll go down there knowing that we will be in for a very challenging game. The environment won't help anyone. I'm sure it will be very warm when we kick off at 6 o'clock. The atmosphere looks like it's been very, very good down there. So I'm sure they're getting behind the team. And I don't know the result tonight, but their first victory at home last weekend will, I'm sure, have infused all the players and given them some confidence for Sunday's matchup. No, our last outing against each other was a draw and a very tough draw at that. I shouldn't think there'll be an awful lot in the game, and obviously we hope that we can turn it our way, but it's going to take a particular type of performance.
How has it been being back, and what do you think? What are your thoughts on tonight's performance?
Yeah, it's great to be back with the guys. It's always a fun one. Last 10 days probably haven't been the best, but we got through it, and tonight's performance was very, very good. Of course, our expectation is that we're going to come in and win wherever we go, but I think everyone on the team, and Gary included, is very, very happy with the performance that we had today.
Thank you, Jack. We will now for question. We'll kick it up with Tim Sullivan, and a reminder for everybody else to please alert me through the chat if you have a question for Jack.
Jack, this has been a New England team over the course of this year that is known for its high-flying offense. What is the particular challenge? Obviously, not having to deal with Carlos Gil really helps, but what is the particular challenge that you guys were able to conquer tonight in keeping them off the score sheet?
Yeah, look, this team is very, very talented from top to bottom. They have a lot of really good attacking threats, but I mean, we train it every single day. It's our back line. It's honestly the whole group of 11. Everyone on this team is bought into defending. Doesn't matter if you're Hani Mukhtar, Randall Leal, CJ. These guys are all brought into team defending. And when you have a guy behind us, that's Joe Willis with, I think, 8 shutouts now. I mean, it really speaks for himself, and really just helps the group as a whole.
We'll continue with Claudio Villalobos.
Jack, my question is along the line of teams. Obviously, Nashville is recognized around the league for the kind of defensive performance that you guys have done for many months now. But I mean, really, when it comes to playing a first team in division conference like New England, and because of the quality of its players, would you rank today's performance defensively as one of the best of the team, even though it's been very good all these months?
I think it definitely ranks up there. But with that being said, I think we can even get better. That's the really great part of what we have going forward, is that we expect this out of ourselves, that we expect to not only be really good and keep shutouts on the defensive end, but how can we help get our really special and talented players the ball higher up the field. This definitely, for me, ranks up for one of the best personal defensive performances against a really, really good team. But I mean, this team has been really, really talented on the defensive end for ever since we've been around.
Ray Hills with the next question.
Jack, I mean, even the way that Tejan Buchanan lined up was much different from when you guys played them in May. A little more advanced up the field, more central. It was obviously, linking up a lot with Gustavo. I'm curious to know how the game plan versus the reality once you eventually got out there. Was there a huge contrast, or how did you pretty much absolve, I guess, that early part of the game where they were kind of linking up a lot?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time analyzing game film, and this was something that we really hadn't seen from them, especially with the news that Carlos Gil was not able to be in the lineup. I think we were kind of really thrown off a little bit of some of our game plans going into it. We had this idea that we're going to be pressing a certain way. What we found was they just ended up overloading Eric and my side. And so it took us a little while, but we were able to bend but not break. And honestly, the second half, we fixed everything, and we're on the front foot on this side.
Thank you, Jack. Before we turn it to Ben Wright with the next question, I just want to give a quick little snippet to those out there talking about Nashville being defensive. Just a reminder, Nashville SC is currently sitting third in the league in goal differential with 10 goals on their favor. So something to remember as we discuss how defensively or offensively the team is. With that, Ben, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jack, I'm just wondering what it was like for you when you were, obviously you missed the Toronto game, but seeing a guy like Robert step up and put in such a good performance, what does that do for you? How do you feel knowing that kind of regardless of who's going to be there next to you, that you can expect the defense and the entire team to play at such a consistent level?
Yeah, Robert had an absolute incredible match, and that's what we expect from him. He is a very, very, very talented player and someone that is always pushing. He's always pushing the guy in front of us, and that's the culture that we've built here. Whether it's me or Jaleel and Robert always trying to push Dave and Walker. I mean, from top guy from number 1 to number 30, this is a team that continually pushes the guy in front of us. And I think that expectation and that reality has really been a key part that contributed to the team's success.
It feels pretty good. New England's a tough place to play, so we knew it was going to be a battle up here. With them being in first place in the East, you know, we knew we couldn't let them take 3 points from the game. There were times where it felt like we could have taken 3 points, but at the end of the day, getting 1 point at a tough place to play on the road, you know, we'll take it.
Thank you, Joe. We will now open the floor for questions. We'll kick it off with Tim Sullivan.
Joe, you were only tested a little bit, but probably New England's best chance came in second half stoppage time. What is it like to kind of have, I guess, finally maybe a slightly more difficult chance that late in the game and knowing, I guess, the pressure on the individual moment there?
Yeah, you have to stay focused for 90 minutes or sometimes 95 minutes. And I think you see it, not saying that we're at the level of Barcelona and Bayern Munich, but you see it with some of the top teams in the world that they control most of the game, and you know, their opponents will get one opportunity, and when you have someone like Ter Stegen or Neuer, they make those big saves, and that's what makes them great. And that's the kind of attitude that I try and take, especially with this team where we're so good defensively, and our opponents might not get a lot of opportunities. I know that at some point they probably will get one. So the guys in front of me are putting a lot of hard work in. So I need to be ready to put some work in myself. And I also, you know, don't want to be the guy who lets the team down when our defenders are putting in shifts like they do. And, you know, if something happens where I let in an easy goal or a goal period, you know, I take that responsibility and feel like, you know, I maybe let them down.
And right with the next question.
Yeah, Joe, I'm curious to know what you saw on that incident with the penalty kick that ended up getting taken back. What did you see? Did you think it was a penalty in real time?
No, I didn't think it was a penalty. I mean, my first thought was that Buxa had a handball in the build up to it, and then I didn't think it was a foul either. So once he made the call, the first thing I told him was that it was a handball and he needs to check it. And several other players let him know as well. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty confident that it would get overturned, but sometimes you never know.
Thank you, Joe, for taking the time tonight to chat with us. We look forward to seeing you again on Sunday, and good luck and safe travels coming home.
Thank you.